Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Rich Pang. He is the Principal Business Development Lead for Kuiper Government Solutions Amazon. Rich, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Tom. Glad to be here.
This Project Kuiper is interesting. You might want to give us a little bit of background on it, and more importantly, how it is contributing to the multi-domain operation vision that the Pentagon has been talking about.
Absolutely, Tom. So Amazon decided to build a constellation of satellites to sort of enable connecting folks who don't have connectivity or have poor connectivity. Most of us view connectivity as an equalizer for the population throughout the world, not unlike healthcare and education. And so embarked on this adventure about 5 to 6 years ago, and it's going really well. We've already put about 150 satellites on orbit and continue to launch them. But obviously, with a constellation like this, a network like this that covers the world, it obviously has enterprise and government applications as well. And so we know that the defense and national security apparatus is not a fixed force, it's a mobile force. And so it requires multi-domain connectivity to ensure that airplanes, ships, trucks, command vehicles are always connected, not only in receiving information, but getting commands out to the field as well. And so constellations like Kuiper really doesn't look to replace what capabilities the government currently has already, but really looking to augment and provide more resilient and secure connectivity to ensure that they have that ability to connect all of those operations, regardless of which domain they operate in.
Right, because even at this point in history, and recently, the Navy doesn't really have connectivity uh, sufficient to do every operation at every point on the globe. And this is the point of the satellites to kind of fill in those gaps, whether at sea and in distant areas.
Right. Just because they never know where they're going to operate, right? You can't have guaranteed fiber connectivity or usual connectivity that you're used to having when you're back at home station. And so it's important to have very flexible types of thing that can respond rapidly to wherever they need to deploy forces.
Sure. And by the way, these are low Earth orbit, correct?
Yes, sir, they absolutely are. All of them orbiting around 600 kilometers, which makes closing those links, those RF links, very easily done with small terminals. And then because of that closeness to the Earth, high throughput and low latency capabilities as well.
I was going to say, yeah, the closer it is to Earth, the less latency versus the high, geosynchronous satellites. You've got some significant, imagine it has impact on applications.
Absolutely, a number of applications which require that low latency.
Right. So these are, in some sense, are just in time for the doctrinal changes and the warfighting capability changes that everybody's talking about right now in the age of the unmanned and the drone and so forth.
Absolutely, no arguments there. I think it's I've been in this business for almost 40 years and seen it start in the geostationary realm down to where we are today. It's not only a different way of buying these types of services and how they're managed, but how they're going to be used in the future is drastically changed. We've far exceeded Moore's law when it comes to the advancements over the last couple of decades.
And of course, you mentioned 40 years in this. You've got a pretty good chops in research and development, leadership over those many years. Talk more about how the Project Kuiper, the Amazon Project Kuiper, is helping innovate satellite communications generally in national security. I guess military is one thing, but national security is a much broader umbrella.
It really is. I think what we've done between inception of the concept and now to deployment is that we spent a great deal of time sitting down with our customers and listening to what are their needs, not just selling them what we have, making a very secure system from the very beginning, ensuring that we enable mobile platforms to use the system in a resilient manner. And so I think just sitting down and getting the voice of the customers is exactly how we've want to go out there and listen to them and build things that actually meet their needs.
With this proliferation of LEO type of capabilities, I imagine even at the high levels of government or some of the more sophisticated commercial users may not be aware of what they can do as a result of this LEO satellite cluster or cloud really being in place.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point, Tom. The fact that Amazon not is only going to provide the connectivity solution. It also has a large cloud capability in Amazon Web Services, right? And so there's this private connectivity that goes through our system directly into the cloud services that makes it very palatable for our customers who are seeking secure solutions. And so I think using not only that, but as we listen to the requirements and doing feasibility analysis to see what the art of the possible is also. Not all requirements make sense, whether it be from a business case perspective or a technical perspective, but we work with them to do these feasibility analysis, sharing information to see, what more can we do with the system, not only with the current generation, but in the future as well.
Sure. And these are also have commercial application, the satellites. And just as the clouds have dual application in national security, government, and commercial, the terrestrial clouds, are you able to offer the kind of security, tunneling, VPN, whatever it might be, capability for this LEO, for Project Kuiper, that the government understands is also shared with commercial clients?
Absolutely. I often find that some of the requirements levied on us by our commercial customers, say the financial industry, is equal, if not more stringent than what the Department of Defense puts on us with the FIPS requirements. And so we're working very hard with the government to make sure we certify our systems and sort of baseline what are the capabilities, what are the shortfalls, and what do we need to fill those gaps.
Right. So it is possible to have secure communications in a medium that is also used commercially, or even
Absolutely.
by civilian agencies for that matter. They have walls between one another in some cases.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the walls are important, but the interoperability I talked about earlier is exactly helping trying to break down those walls so it's easy for the whole of government to communicate with each other as well.
Right. And so next generation connectivity, tell us what that means, what's really going on here, especially in the defense context.
Yeah, I think it's a number of things. I mean, we talked about the low latency and the higher throughputs, but it also enables, because we're flying optical inter-satellite links on all our satellites, to not only remove congestions from certain ground points, but allow us to have multiple paths to move information. That has opened up sort of a new realm of being able to connect into the network, not only on the ground, but in space as well. So you can imagine a remote sensing system, which today has to collect the information, store it, and then forward it when it gets to a ground station. In the new system, if they're flying an optical communication system on their satellite, they would be able to collect that information, connect directly into Kuiper, get that information down to the ground in near real time into the cloud if they happen to be using our cloud services as well.
I guess that's maybe one of the big differences, one of the profound differences in the in this type of environment with multiple satellites like Kuiper. It's not a point-to-point necessarily between a satellite and a ground link, but there is activity among the satellites, which is very different from, I think, geosynchronous, where you tend to be up and down point to point. Fair to say?
It's absolutely fair to say, Tom. Folks are used to owning assets or having transponders that are dedicated to their network, right? But in the case of managed services like Kuiper, the entire network is constantly being optimized to take full use of the spectrum that we have, and so it's got varying geometries, it's got varying frequencies, and so inherently these types of capabilities also make it more secure in that it helps reduce interference, and whether they be meaningful or unintended, right? Because the geometries are constantly changing, it also accounts for the weather changes and things of that nature as well. And so every bit of information that goes through our system always has an alternate path, if not multiple paths, to get that bit of information through our system to its endpoint.
And I'm guessing there's a little touch of artificial intelligence going on within this whole mesh, such that those handoffs, those routing decisions happen faster and more efficiently.
Absolutely. Having been a satellite guy my entire career, I love talking about the satellites, but really those satellites are merely an enabler for this great thing we're calling the software-defined network that sits in the AWS cloud that is really managing and orchestrating this entire orchestra that allows information to move smoothly and effectively.
And by the way, it's internet protocol that's moving around, correct? It's IP. It's not some exotic or obsolete type of communication protocol.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely.
Yeah, so there's kind of an integrative uh, quality to this for the military in that, as you said, systems can become interoperable because of this SDN that connects them all.
Yes, sir. Absolutely true. I think the power of the entire thing is not only the connectivity directly in the cloud for private connectivity, but it's also exactly what you described. If government is moving to a lot of IP traffic today already, and it's less more about the dedicated MPLS networks of the past. And so I think this opens up the aperture to them being able to incorporate a lot of different capabilities throughout the many domains they operate, and also shorten the timeline in which they get that information, from sensors to processing centers to engagement vehicles.
Sure. And we're going to just explore this a little bit more, but right now we're going to take a short break. My guest is Rich Pang. He's the Principal Business Development Lead for Kuiper Government Solutions Amazon. I'm Tom Temm, and you're watching this discussion, Space Revolution, Next Generation Connectivity for Multi-Domain Operations, brought to you by KGS Amazon, here on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the discussion, Space Revolution, Next Generation Connectivity for Multi-Domain Operations, brought to you by KGS Amazon here on Federal News Network. My guest today is Rich Pang, Principal Business Development Lead for Kuiper Government Solutions Amazon. And before the break, Rich, we were talking about the idea of redundancy and resiliency in communications, especially in contested environments. And this has always been a terrestrial challenge. Now that space connectivity is becoming a reality literally everywhere on the globe, uh, talk more about how Kuiper is enabling this idea of resilience and redundancy in contested environments. And they're all contested, I guess, at some point.
Absolutely. In my mind, resiliency comes from not being locked into a single architecture, right? But having many choices, having alternative to getting your information where it needs to go. And so satellite networks that exist today can't be discounted. So they have to be able to plug in and integrate with the new capabilities as well, right? I think people like to use the term backwards compatibility. And so we can't divest ourselves completely of what we've already deployed out there. We have to make it work with the new stuff as well. And so resiliency in my mind is, creating a dynamic system that allows it to choose the best path to take when you're moving information around. The government has been working on a lot of different efforts to sort of do this integration at the ground, at the terminal level, where they have single apertures that work on multiple networks, and then orchestration software that allows it to pick what is the best network, whether it's interference free, it's the better frequency, or it's the higher throughput or the lower latency that's required to get the information where it needs to go. And so it's really an orchestration of all those capabilities to build that resiliency into the broader architecture that the Defense Department and the National Security Aperture is trying to deploy now. So the system is always sensing for interference, whether it's intentional or not. It's sensing for weather interference, it's sensing for intentional interference. And so it always knows that it needs an alternate path. And so on certain parts of the Earth, you have many satellites in view at any given time. And so it always knows that if I have interference in a particular path, it knows to look for the alternative or the tertiary path. And so the system is constantly optimizing itself very rapidly to ensure that that interference is dealt with.
Right. And that's something that capability that is not really extant at all, is it, in the geosynchronous world where everything is fixed point to point type of arrangement?
Exactly. You can't change the geometry unless you move the ground terminal, right? That's the only way to get away from it. But in this world where geometries are constantly changing with the system you're connecting to, I think inherently you avoid some of that intentional or unintentional interference.
Yeah, and so I wanted to ask about the integration of multiple data sources, because often military leadership, say in the Command C2 situation, you need multiple sources of data, weather, uh, I can't name them all, but weather's a big one.
Mhm.
That might be coming from other than, say, the Kuiper satellites, or other data might be coming from a cloud, back at the base. And here's what the capabilities are. Here's what your fuel load is. I don't know, I'm making all this up, but
Mhm.
integration of information from many sources that might then need to be shared, say, among a battle group, which is multiple vessels, this type of thing, or then shared with airplanes and so forth. Talk about the integration of information sources that might have come from different frequencies and different formats, and how Kuiper might be able to enable that integration at the user level.
Yeah, there's a lot of different fusion engines out there to integrate all the information you talked about, whether it's weather, imagery, signals intelligence, whatever the data might be. There's a ton of information that needs to be collected and fused together, and there are a lot of fusion engines, whether they sit on premises or in the cloud today, or even at the edge. Right, a lot of cloud capabilities are being deployed to the tactical edge, so it can be processed in real time and given to tactical commanders in a much more shortened time frame. But our play in that is really getting all of that information to where it needs to be, whether it's at the tactical edge or back to a data center to be fused, processed, and then redistributed. And so as the transport layer, not only can we get all that information back, we can help redistribute that information very quickly to the tactical users so that commanders can make decisions in a much shortened timeline.
It occurs to me I've been taking a very ocean-centric view of all of this, but contested environments can be totally terrestrial, where you want the satellite capability as well. And even though you might be surrounded by cell towers that don't work or knocked down or whatever the case might be. So we're not just talking about the middle of the Pacific Ocean at all, correct?
Absolutely not. I mean, I often think about our first responders or disaster response customers that have multiple systems at any given time to ensure they have connectivity. Right? They have their radios, they have their microwave connections, they have their cellular. But in the event any of those are taken down, cell towers are taken down because of a natural disaster, they have to have satellite as a backup to ensure they can speak to the responders out in the field. Right? And so this whole situational awareness. Battle space picture needs to be ensured. And so they need multiple ways of having that connectivity.
The connectivity, the apertures, those are standards based also. In other words, you don't need exotic new gear or protocols for Kuiper communications.
No, there are guys that have working in that space that have put all of that together into a single IP blended solution that allows you to take police cars, ambulances, command vehicles with all those capabilities. And really, in the case of Kuiper, all we're doing is adding, either our smallest terminal, which is 7 inches by 7 inches, or maybe our larger terminal, which is about 20 inches by 30 inches, depending on their throughput requirements. And so it's very, very easily integrated into the existing solutions today.
All right. And just generally, what does it mean for Amazon to be in space? I mean, Amazon means a lot of things in the AWS context and the military support context. What does it mean for you to be supporting national defense in this way?
I think at the very beginning, it was definitely just to provide connectivity, right? And space happened to be that enabler that allowed that to occur. But I think, at least on the government team, our focus has been listening to our customers and what else can we do on top of that connectivity. And you can imagine if we partner with a remote sensing provider, the same place where they buy this connectivity service, maybe they can also buy a remote sensing service as well, or a weather service, like you talked about earlier.
And given your 40 years in this business, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Telstar was a top 40 song when satellites were kind of exotica in the public imagination. What do you think are some of the key enablements technologically that have allowed something like Kuiper to exist?
Yeah, I think the antenna development that's gone from the parabolic apertures to phase array, electronically steerable arrays,
Mhm.
enables us to do what part of what we do. And the other really is the reduction in launch costs has allowed constellations like Kuipers to, no kidding, really proliferate in large numbers. Because I think in the past, launch costs were so extreme, it made it very difficult to deploy large numbers of satellite. And we saw that in the 90s, right, when constellations like these in smaller scale were trying to be deployed. And so I
And
think all of that adds to that.
and for, the satellite geeks in the audience, do these things, they must have a life cycle, and does that require you to constantly refresh the fleet with new launches as some of them die or fall out of orbit?
I think it's absolutely about right sizing, right timing, how long these assets are built to last. Because I think you want to not invest in something that lasts forever because technology will run past you if that's the case. So you want to time it correctly so that you appropriately refresh technology as it develops. And so we build our constellation, we believe, to the right timing so that we can refresh the technology in the time frame that's needed. But also we've built into the system that we can gradually and gracefully bring these assets back in and burn up in the atmosphere so we can replace them with the more updated next generation of capabilities.
Sure. And how big are one of these LEO satellites? Is it the size of a minivan, the size of a microwave oven, or what?
I would say that they are certainly right sized to provide capabilities. Our numbers are drastically smaller than some of our competition, and so you can make some inferences to maybe about how we right size the vehicle.
All right, fair enough. And just as a final question, can you just maybe give us a sense of what the technological futures are? Where do you want to go with this technology? What can we expect in future enhancements?
I would say that in the future we are exploring a number of things, right? How do we get more data to the ground right now? We're relying on, although we have this optical connectivity between satellites, we have RF connectivity to the ground, and so looking at ways to improve that that throughput to the ground. How do I increase that? Is it through different frequencies? Is it through optical connections from the space to ground? And so there's a number of things being explored in the trade space on that, and a lot of it is based on feedback from our customers.
All right, well, they'll know who to call now. Very interesting stuff. I want to thank you for being with us. Rich Pang is the Principal Business Development Lead for Kuiper Government Solutions Amazon. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tom.
And I'm Tom Temin. You've been watching Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, please visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search KGS Amazon.